Good morning, everybody. I'm hoping this has gone live. And so this week's topic is remembering what you read and comprehension. So in lunchtime last week, I did visualizing for learning. And that was about visualizing for all the different things you could do for learning. And which might be in primary school, it might be in secondary school, it might be sports and hobbies, it might be adult occupations when you're grown up. And so all sorts of different things. But today what I'm going to do is drop back down into visualizing skills for reading and for comprehension. Why am I doing this topic? Well, I get lots of inquiries about this, about why children don't want to read. And if you can't remember what you read, I can assure you that's the most boring thing out, which is exactly what happened to me. Also, if you're obsessing over the words, you can't get the context of what you're doing. And so all of those things come together. And if you can learn new skills for how to remember what to read, and you can remember what it's about, then you can do comprehension. So this is a very short Facebook Live just to give you the idea of how to do this, and you're going to have lots of opportunity to practice afterwards. So has anybody got any mental imagery to start with? Everybody has, but maybe some people find it more difficult to find it. I expect you all know what a giraffe looks like. There's a giraffe. But in your mind, if I said to you, what's a giraffe look like, you'll have already got long neck, small ears, horns, 4 legs, tail, lots of splotches down the side of it. And so, and if you can recognize a family member, then not in the giraffe family, I hasten to add, but in order to recognize a family member, you need to know what they look like. You need to have seen them before. A new family member that might turn up in your life, you need to get an image of that one so you can remember it the same thing. Can you recognize your car? So if you've parked your car in the street, do you know which one's yours? All of those things are done with mental imagery. But the important thing is that is mental imagery on recalling information. So that's information you've seen before somewhere, even if it's in a book like a giraffe. But this is information that that you want to be able to recall again. Then we come on to the different thing, which is things that you're now making up, pictures that you're now making up in your head, which may or may not be things you've ever seen before. And you're allowed to make up whatever version you like. So this is what I call stage management for the brain. And so this is about how we use our mental imagery and how we use it for our memory. So have I locked the front door, for example? Did I take a picture of the front door in my head when I locked the front door? Which floor of the car park was the car parked on? Where did I put the keys down? Those again are things that you've seen before. Now I want to move you into things that you've not seen before. And when you read a book, the best way to do it is to pause at the end of every sentence or at the end of every paragraph and give your brain stage management. So you know in stage management it tells you where to walk, for example, if you're on a stage. Then I'm going to give you stage management for your brain. And in one of my books, I published a little story and gave stage management for every half sentence. And so I'm just going to read it to you and see if you can remember those, create the pictures. And if you've heard it before, just have another go because you'll probably be creating different pictures this time. There were no cars on the big wide roads of the city centre. Think of that picture. But the pavements were filling up with crowds held back by bright tape. Adjust your picture to put the crowds on the pavement. People were just standing, waiting expectantly, gently pressing to the front. Adjust the crowd to standing still if you had them walking about. Some motorbikes could be seen in the distance. had your version of the motorbikes in. But they were coming quite slowly, and behind them was a group of people. Slow your motorbikes down and add in the group. You could hear distant cheering, and as the group got nearer, you could see they were running. Adjust your picture again. You could even see people cheering as they leant out of the windows of the buildings in downtown Edmonton in Canada. Adjust your picture again. Put the word Edmonton in so you can remember it, perhaps on a banner across the road. If you've been to Canada, you can make it more real. If not, just imagine. It was opening day of World Athletics 2001. How about putting up some flags from the lampposts advertising World Athletics 2001? As the athletes got nearer, the crowd went frantic as the Canadian runner sped past. The Canadian flag has a red leaf with a white background. Put that into your picture too. Now, how are you going to remember the other nationalities? Ethiopians, Spanish, Greek, Americans, English, and many more. The group streamed past so quickly, surrounded by bikes and cars, and with an enormous cheer from the crowd, they were gone, away into the dusk of the city centre, with another 20 miles to the end of the marathon. Can you put dusk into your picture? Perhaps also including a 20-mile marker post on the side of the road. Can you recall the noise of the crowd? So I'm just going to give you a few questions that you can just think of the answers for yourself, or you can put them in on Facebook. For example, what was the event? See if you can remember that and notice how you're remembering it. What's the Canadian flag look like? What was the colour of the tape that was holding back the crowds on the pavement? And if you're listening to this on Facebook, then do put in questions. I'm just trying to find my Facebook feed. Okay, so that's one way of getting, as I say, stage management for the brain. And of course, when you do this for yourself, you can just pause at the end of every sentence or every paragraph and think of a picture. You can also roll all the pictures together if you prefer to make them into a video. And let's try this out with another story. Which one shall I pick? Let's do Harry Potter. The nice thing about some of the children's books is that they're written in really visual, creative way, so that it's easier to make up your own pictures. And this is a story about when the dragon was born. And the kids went to Hagrid's cottage and greeted him looking very flushed and excited. It's nearly out, he ushered them inside. The egg was lying on the table. There were deep cracks in it. Something was moving inside. A funny creaking noise was coming from it. They all drew their chairs up to the table and watched with bated breath. All at once there was a scraping noise and the egg split open. The baby dragon flopped onto the table. It wasn't exactly pretty. Harry thought it looked like a crumpled black umbrella. Its spiny wings were huge compared with its skinny body. And it had a long snout with wide nostrils, stubs of horns, and bulging orange eyes. It sneezed. A couple of sparks flew out of its nose. Isn't it beautiful? Hagrid murmured. So I hope that's one. I can remember that story so easily from the first time I read it. And as I say, in children's books, they're always written in pretty creative text. And I'm just going to read you another one. And this one's slightly different. This one's from James and the Giant Peach. Now, I started cartoon drawing quite some time ago, but during the lockdown, I've been doing more of it. And I discovered that if you create imagery whilst you're reading, you can create it in your head or you can create it on paper. And so I've been really enjoying doing more and more cartoons. And if I read you this bit of story, I'm not going to give you stage management this time. You can make up your own. And I will show you the pictures, the sketches I drew at the end. And now the peach had broken out of the garden and was over the edge of the hill, rolling and bouncing down the steep slope at a terrific pace. Faster and faster and faster it went, and the crowds of people who were climbing up the hill suddenly caught sight of this terrible monster plunging down upon them, and they screamed and scattered to the right and the left as it went hurtling by. At the bottom of the hill, it charged across the road, knocking over a telegraph pole and flattening two parked cars as it went by. Then it rushed madly across about 20 fields, breaking down all the fences and hedges in its path. It went right through the middle of a herd of Jersey cows, and then through a flock of sheep, and then through a paddock full of horses, and then through a yard full of pigs. And soon the whole countryside was a seething mass of panic-stricken animals, stampeding in all directions. The peach was still going at a tremendous speed, with no sign of slowing down, and about a mile after that it came to a village. Down the main street of the village it rolled, with people leaping frantically out the way of frantically out of its path, right and left, and at the end of the street it went crashing through the wall of an enormous building and out the other side, leaving two gaping holes in the brickwork. And so it carried on like that and eventually went over the cliffs and into the sea. So again, another way of getting your stories better and better, and so that you can remember them. And this is a picture of the sketches that I drew from the whole of the book of James and the Giant Peach. Now, if I walk through this, I can remember, these pictures enable me to remember exactly what happened in James and the Giant Peach. I'll give you a quick run through, and of course all of these pictures you can be making up in your head. There was James looking through the fence and feeling a bit bored, and there was his nasty auntie Sponge and Spiker, and he was chopping up wood and feeling very hot and bothered. And then there came along the man with his little green pellets, which made everything turn magic. And there he is talking to the caterpillar, who is absolutely enormous, with hundreds and hundreds of feet and shoes. And there's the giant peach as it went over the cliffs into the river. Oh, sorry, the sea. And there are the other friends he met on in the peach. There's the earthworm, the glowworm, the ladybird, Miss Spider, and the silkworm. And when they had the peach in the sea, they were starting to sink because they were being attacked by sharks. And James managed to sort of lasso the seagulls so that he caught them with the spider's web and put them around the stalk of the peach. And there you can see, when he got a whole crowd of them around the stalk of the peach, all the birds supporting it, and it went through the clouds and all sorts of adventures and crashed through a rainbow before it landed in New York. So those pictures stay with people, especially if they can make them up themselves. So that's the end of the one for today. And if you want to get more in contact, then thank you for joining me, and that's how you get in contact with us.